Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and I wanted to talk for a second about a case that you may or may not have heard about. It's the case of Prince Johnson. Prince Johnson was 16 years old when he was convicted of murdering a woman who was the wife of an ice cream vendor. Her first name was Marta. I think her last name was Roman. Well, Prince received life in prison with no parole at the age of 16. He was in prison for 44 years, and the court just recently decided retroactively that it was unconstitutional to give a juvenile at the age of 16 life in prison with no parole. They wanted to give him the death penalty, and also the prosecutor and the defense attorney, from what I understand, from what I've read, both agreed that he didn't even fire the shots that led to this woman's death. So effectively, some you could argue that he's an innocent man. He may have been involved with what happened, but I think you could certainly empathize with the idea that he didn't deserve to lose his entire life. His family's now working to exonerate him completely because they're saying he lost his entire life. I mean, imagine going to prison at the age of 16 and getting out when you're 60. 16 to 60. That's your whole life. I mean, you pretty much have lived your entire life behind bars. And here's what I want you to really think about when it comes to these cases that keep popping up. About once a week, maybe twice a week, we always see some case somewhere where somebody was sent to prison for some unbelievable amount of time, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and it turns out they either didn't do it or they were over sentenced. These are not aberrations from an otherwise perfect justice system. You see, some people want to think, oh, well, the system's good. It's just these are just mistakes. This was just a crack in the justice system. It wasn't a crack. The fact is that for every one case that you find out about, there are probably 200 or 300 more that are never going to see the light of day. Right now, there are thousands and thousands of people in prison who either didn't do it, who were coerced into a confession, had evidence planted on them by corrupt police, or were forced through the system in a negative way because they didn't have the money to pay for expensive lawyers to let them through. So they're either innocent entirely or they were severely over sentenced. I think about a guy I know named Mario Lloyd who got 15 life sentences for possession for selling crack back in the 1980s. And I mean, most of us can agree that selling crack is wrong, absolutely. But shouldn't this man, after 25 years, get a chance to come home to his family? There are a lot of people in this system who don't belong there, who deserve to be home. And for some reason, nobody wants to talk about that. Our politicians won't talk about that. Our president won't even really talk about that. And so, what I would just say is, I think that when you talk about any president, whether it's Obama or a white guy or a white woman, anybody, they have to be held accountable on this. The president has the power with his ink pen. He could pick up a pen and sign a document tomorrow that would lead to wide scale reopenings of cases. Just get a commission, spend about $1 billion on this. I mean, we spend billions on nonsense. We spend trillions over. I don't know if it was over $1 trillion, but it was a lot of money we spent in Iraq killing people for no reason. So you could spend $1 billion on justice. And I'm talking about a $1 billion plan where the president grabs a gigantic committee, hundreds of people. I'm talking about maybe 400 or 500 attorneys and political scientists or whatever it is you need to go through all these cases. Forensic investigators look at all these cases en masse and do wide scale exonerations or at least wide scale resentences. Because the thing is, you have people that are still serving many decades in prison under laws that have been since declared unconstitutional. You changed the crack law from what was 100 to 1 to 18 to 1, but which is still not fair because 18 to 1 still means that a 5-year powder sentence leads to a 90-year crack sentence. So it's still racist. It's still unfair. It's just not as horribly unfair as it used to be. But even since you changed that law, you still got people that have been sentenced under the old law. How much sense does that make? That makes no sense at all. And so, when I talk about Obama, people get all huffy, like, oh, don't talk about my president. I love my president. And I mean, it ain't got nothing to do with love. It's about loving your damn people. You got to love your people enough to say to that man or any man in the White House or any woman, look, you need to do something about this. There are American citizens who are being tortured in prison. I mean, prison is a horrible place. Not only are you emotionally isolated from the world, you're mistreated and abused by guards, you're mistreated and abused by other inmates, and many prison inmates get raped. And I never understood it. It always baffles me why we have all these people that are so concerned about sexual assault, but when I bring up prison rape, which is far worse than what regular rape is, because you don't get any justice and you get assaulted many times and you can't avoid your accuser because they're behind bars with you. When I bring up prison rape, they don't want to talk about it. And honestly, I think they don't want to talk about it because there are studies that show that white people and even some black people believe that black people feel less pain than other people. That when we go through trauma, when we go through torture, when we go through a Holocaust, it's not as bad because, well, they're black. So black people, they go through that kind of stuff. They're used to that. Well, no, we're not. So, that's what I see. When I see a case like the one with this brother, I just say to myself, man, we're seeing one case after another that's kind of dripping through the system. And the reason that there's a drip is because there's a flood of other scenarios where somebody did not get the justice they deserve. There are thousands of people right now, right this minute, right as I'm talking to you right now, who are in prison, who are suffering unbelievable amounts of torture, who are being raped right as we speak, who are being beaten right as we speak, who are being abused right as we speak, who feel abandoned right as we speak, who should be out of prison, who receive sentences in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s that they did not deserve, who could be freed by the president's pen. So, I encourage you to ask for that. Let's keep that call going. Let's just ask the president, pick up your damn pen and save a life. Just sign the document. Create a committee with hundreds of people that can go through these cases and review them one by one to make sure that everybody's properly sentenced. It's not that hard to do. You make me president for a day. That's the first thing that I do. Anyway, that's all I want to say. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World. Don't forget, we have a new film out called Resurrecting Black Wall Street, about another story they don't tell you about in history, which is a Black Wall Street massacre in 1921, where wealthy, affluent blacks had their wealth stolen by rioting whites in surrounding communities who became jealous of what they had. And this is part of the reparations conversation, which I'm consistently having, because if you go through history, you start digging around, you find literally thousands and thousands and thousands of scenarios where white people had wealth, or excuse me, black people had wealth that they would have passed down to their children that was stolen by whites, and that wealth didn't disappear. It's still out here. People still have that money, but they feel like they shouldn't have to share it or shouldn't have to give it back. And the fact is that it belongs to us because it was taken from us. So that's the whole reparations conversation. I hope you'll have that conversation too. Don't be afraid to have bold conversations, even if it seems like nobody's listening, because there were things I was talking about 10 years ago that nobody was listening to then, and everybody's talking about them now. So I'm going to keep talking about these things to the day that I die, and that's just a fact. So anyway, until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. I am gone. Peace.